stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All in silence. Okay. Will the district clerk please call the roll?
Yes. We do have Miss Hanago, she just stepped out of the room, so when she comes back, I called. We have Mr. Mark Washoe,
Here.
Mrs. Mylan Aguilas,
Present.
Mrs. Jacqueline Napolitano Furnow,
Present.
Mrs. Lee Kennedy, Dr. Adams,
Present.
Mr. Dean Middleman,
Present.
Mr. Resident Kulahipar,
Here.
and we also have Miss Bridget Billy Rally, who had just stepped out as well, and myself, Jesse, from the district.
I'd like to know if there's any changes to the meeting agenda, a call for motion and a second.
There was a change to personnel schedule 1, schedule 2, my apologies.
Okay, so we'll call for a motion and a second. You don't need to do that?
No, because it was decided just when you do the personnel schedule, for schedule 2 can be as amended.
Okay, we'll call for a motion and a second to accept the minutes of the March 9th, 2020 Board of Education meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Student government report. I know we have here Charlotte B. Simone and Brendan Falabella. Yeah. What do you got for us?
You guys want to step up to the mic one minute?
Hello. So the National Honor Society and the World Language Honor Society are going to be setting up tutoring, virtual tutoring. The Math Honor Society is going to be setting up virtual tutoring as well. Civic Club are waiting for approval on courtyard cleanup, as well as planning a virtual freshman awareness seminar. Habitat for Humanity is planning a virtual 5K as to keep to tradition. The drive-in movie is going to be happening. It's not actually going to be a drive-in movie. Kids can come and there's going to be like 6 feet sections where they can sit. We're also considering making it a food drive. If someone brings a can of food, they can get food in return. And that is being planned jointly by the sophomore and junior class. The movie is yet to be decided. And then Bro Kappa is making time capsules. The International Club is preparing peer tutoring. That's going to be virtual. And Best Buddies is hosting a virtual social event. And there was a nationwide friendship ball.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So when we came back all together, we had a balloon set up, and we had a few signs that was pitched in for our classes and our government. A lot of the kids enjoyed it. It was a warm welcome on our way back. The virtual talent show that we're hosting, the deadline is Friday. The prizes are all supporting local businesses. We're getting gift cards from 2 stores around Kokomo, Bohemian, I believe one in Sayville. The senior class is collecting money for their paintball, their trip, or their scheduling. The senior car parade is this Thursday. The sophomore and junior classes have been doing our ring sales. We've had our representative there for, I think, 3 days in a week, and we've had the virtual option to buy them. They've been doing pretty well, and there's more than just rings this year. We have jackets that will come with it, and there's things like necklaces and bracelets along those lines. And our trivia night is postponed until April 29th due to a lack of signups. That's all we have.
Thank you.
What is the senior car parade?
So I'm not completely sure, but I think it's going to be similar to something they did last year, when they had a senior car parade.
Oh, I went to that, but they handed out the yearbooks?
I believe, but I don't
Oh,
think
yeah,
they're
that's
handing
right.
out
Yeah,
yearbooks.
I think you're right. Yeah, that was very cool. And I think the other thing too, I'm not sure, I don't want to mess this up. I think it's the girls lacrosse team that's doing like the Easter, coming to your houses and putting Easter
We
eggs.
weren't told by their club or their sport if they were doing that, so there's nothing definitive, at least that we know of, or
Yeah,
at
no, there
least
is.
planned yet. So
Yeah, there
maybe it's
is.
an idea.
I'm not 100% sure which girls' team it is. I want to say it's,
I think I saw it.
yeah, and I thought that was very cool. They've been doing that for a few years now, where they take like $30 and the girls come to your house and they throw the Easter eggs and kind of, it's very nice. I hope a lot of people support
They
that.
egg the house, I think it's.
Yeah, the egg the house,
Egg the
yes,
house,
egg the
yes.
house.
Oh, I do know.
Linda, do you know which team that is?
I think it was student government that was doing it for a couple of years, but I'm not sure who's doing it this year.
Oh, maybe it's student government.
I do believe we took over, but I don't think that we're doing it this year.
It's, Piscatelli's doing it.
So field hockey, girls field hockey?
Field hockey, that's what it is. I know,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
field hockey's doing it, okay. Yeah, I want to encourage people to do that too. That's very good. I enjoy it.
No, someone just said to me it's girls lacrosse.
Girls
It is
lacrosse.
girls lacrosse, I just looked it up in the virtual.
Yeah.
Oh, it is, okay, so I got it right the first time. It's
Yeah,
girls lacrosse.
lacrosse.
So that is set.
Yeah, girls lacrosse,
Oh,
yes, I
other
did get it right the
Piscatelli.
first time.
Mrs. Piscatelli does field hockey.
So let me ask you a question. Now that you have your, fellow, schoolmates back, how does it feel having everybody kind of immersed back into the school system?
Already, it does actually feel like a difference. We doubled the school in a day. It feels like, well, at least for me, because I went back the second half, I'm a junior. I like it a lot. The classes are more full. It already feels more like a regular class. Obviously, we aren't supposed to talk to each other, but we do, and it's just, it feels nicer. It really does. A lot more motivation to go to school.
Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I'm a sophomore, and it's definitely a more cohesive class experience, you know, being there with your friends in a more learning environment. It's very easy to learn when you're also having fun at the same time because your friends are there. So it's good for both academics and socially.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you, by the way, I saw pictures on Facebook with the balloons, welcoming the kids back and everything, so that was such a great initiative. So whoever designed or organized that, please thanks from the Board of Education. I appreciate seeing those pictures. They're very nice.
Student government actually did the balloons and the signs were arranged by Mr. Moran. But the classes actually came together to pay for the signs. So it was a real, joint movement to kind of bring that all together.
It was noticed and appreciated.
Thank you.
And I'm glad to see you guys back. I think, when you come back, it sort of gives you hope that the pandemic is, it's still here, we're not dismissing it, but it's giving a hope for the future that, things are, more fun things are ahead.
Definitely, yes.
Good question. What do you guys do with the balloons when it's over?
So,
I don't know.
or so it's actually the company we work with. They come set up the balloons and they take them back to us.
Oh, good, okay, good.
Anybody else have anything to say?
Happy to have you guys in there, that's all I can say.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Brent.
Glad to hear it's working out so far.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Audit committee meeting, suspend business meeting, call for a motion in a second. To sign the business meeting, all in favor, call for a motion in a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Audio committee meeting, call for a motion and a second. To call the audit committee meeting to order,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Call for a motion and a second to accept the corrective action plans for the 2019-2020 internal audit as presented. All in, motion and second first.
Motion.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn audit committee meeting. Call for a motion and a second to adjourn the audit committee meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resume public session. Call for a motion and a second to resume the business meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You want to take over and be back?
Yeah.
We're actually recommended action, personnel matters.
Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve personnel matters, Schedule 1, resignations, terminations, leaves of absences.
Which one is as amended?
Schedule 2.
And what was the amended? Is it, you added somebody?
No.
Why is it amended?
Removing 5B.
Did we look at 5B?
The board requested more information for 5D, that information will be provided to the board. So we're removing 5D for now.
Five B?
Yeah.
E is off.
This
That was one of the next ones.
Okay, I got it.
Oh, okay. Okay, do I need a motion and a second for schedule 1, please?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion and a second to approve personal matters, schedule 2, appointments, tenure, salary changes as amended.
Motion.
Lisa, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Please put your microphones on when you answer so that everyone can hear us at home. Thank you. I need a motion and a second to approve, financial matters, item 2, wait. We need discussion on that too first. What is that?
Financial.
Oh, the order, oh, yes, I have some questions on that. So I need a motion and a second,
We passed it when it was.
what, the corrective action plan, it says financial matters, aye, or aye.
It's plain weather report anyway.
I think I thought I had a photo of people.
All right, let me go this way.
I'm looking at the.
Like, what they said.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm looking at
We
the.
recommended that.
So, yeah, so on the paper, it's on.
It's still on it, great, so that's what I'm doing. Recommended items, financial matters,
You're right.
okay, any motion and second?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the consent agenda. I need a motion and a second, and then discussion,
Motion. Second.
okay,
All in favor?
no, you have to do discussion first, and then we do all in favor. Is there anything on here? Hold on, I just have to go to the next one. Yes, the Seneca Consulting Group, can you explain that one to me?
Randolph, can actually explain that?
The Seneca Consulting Group is the group that does our, what are they called? 1095s
Oh, right.
for the Obamacare issue. And they track the number of employees that we have. And with Obamacare, when it came in, you have to have 95% of your full-time employees be receiving some sort of health insurance. Either they decline it or they're offered it. So this Seneca Consulting contract is the entity that allows for, just the paperwork, and they kind of figure out who's eligible and who's not eligible.
Okay. And then on the next one, I know the agreements in between schools, but since when did we do health agreements? What kind of health services would they receive from another school? Like, didn't they, I don't understand that one.
We pay for, the nursing that's provided.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and people who, have kids in our district also do.
Oh, okay, so it is reciprocal?
Yes.
Okay. The district-wide health emergency plan adoption, is that the reopening plan? So what is this? Because I never, it was the thing that says in the paperwork, said something about a Board of Education committee. I'm on the Board of Education, I'm not on a committee.
No, it's the district-wide emergency committee. And
Oh, is that the one that Jackie's on?
I'm on the.
And we presented the plan, which is basically there was a change to the legislation that made us have to determine who was, needed in the district or not if we were to close again. So we presented it to the board in, February, it went out for 30 days for public comment, and now we need to approve it so that we can put it on our website for New York State Education Department.
You went out on the website for public comment?
Yes.
And Jackie, you're on that committee, so that was all?
Yeah, because it was a very good meeting and everything was handled, we even went over the bike issues.
Okay. This bid, the bid, John, I guess it's you?
I can speak to you, right?
Yeah, can you tell me what this is? Oh, no, this is not the one, hold on, that's not it. It was, it's not even on here. Wasn't there something on here that you asked us to, the transfers, yeah, you guys approved that already?
No, that's
No,
not.
Oh, that's next?
number 9.
Okay, so that's next, okay, so number 9, the budget transfers, that's what I want to talk about. So is this the thing that we talked about, Linda, where it's, you guys can just do the budget transfers when you need to?
No, this is the budget transfer to allow us to do the work that Mr. Allen put together for you folks in the FYI. It's the air handlers, to get them up to number 13 ratings. There was an entire, sheet of work that we sent home people
And we're transferring it now before this school year ends. Why?
so that we can do the work now.
Okay, we knew this in the beginning of the year, though, in March of last year, that we were gonna need air handlers when COVID first started. By June, everybody knew. So why didn't we do this in July, August? Why didn't we do this then?
Because we thought, and that we might be using $11 million in state aid at any time. So we held back on any kind of large purchases,
We
any
spent
kind
$7 million, wasn't it?
well, we transferred some of that from the year before, but we also, from our regular budget, we held back as much as we could, just in case we got to the point where we knew that we were going to be losing that state aid. And we only determined about a month ago that the state aid was going to remain the same for this year. So this is something that we now can access the funds to do because we are.
So we overinflated the employee health insurance fund by over 1.3 million, and those more transfers on this fund throughout the year. This fund seems to be very, very, very fluffy, for lack of a better adjective.
That is where a word regarding contingency funds are. And that was, I think we've explained, and, you know, I know Karen Donnelly explained that in the past. You know,
This is what I talked about last year, that this fluffiness has to go away. We need to get a little bit, tighten our belts a little bit and do actual to actual, not budget to budget. Because this is where we're actually swindling our taxpayers. And again, lack of a better adjective, it's not anything illegal. Every school district puts cushion in their budget. We just seem to put a lot more in than other school districts.
A little extra.
Little extra, especially from this fund.
So that is the only code that has any contingencies. We've done a lot of work in the last year. We've done a lot of work, every single department, every single building.
So then let's put it in the right place instead of parking it in the employee health insurance fund.
So the problem with contingencies is that you don't really know what's going to come before you.
But we know every year that we transfer a lot of money out of here.
Yes, because that's where the contingencies are, and as things happen, if there's additional personnel, whatever.
Very,
the case may
very,
be.
very misleading to the public. That's all I'm saying. It's not transparent.
Every
it's just
single
not.
school district does utilize contingencies,
I-
and there are only
I
certain
know
codes
that.
you can put them in.
I know that, but we seem to do it a lot more than others. If you check out the rest of Suffolk County, our budget has been high for many more years than theirs. And you know, Bridget, that we talked about this last year, actual to actual, not budget rollover. You know, if you spend $500 a month every month, and when you budget 600, you can't now budget 800 the next year, and 1,000 next year when you're still only spending 500. It's too much fluff.
Correct, and every single building, every single department was tasked with, if you're going to submit me your budget, it has to be because you have a quote, it's actual, it's based on what you need. State aid was
We
obviously.
gotta go through those
over our head.
guidelines too, but that's another thing. You give us you're doing that tonight?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, all right, I want to pull the budget transfers for a second vote, please. And that's all my questions. Anybody else have any questions?
I just wanted to know what happened. I remember you speaking to me about it when we went to the school to visit. We went to the school to look at a couple of issues, the MERV 13s. I thought that those were put in, that was right, I was under the impression that those were put in for the safety of all the staff and students, not that we were gonna keep the ones that were low.
So what we did was we upgraded the filtration in all of the equipment throughout the district. That being said, the equipment isn't necessarily designed for that. So we're putting an increased load on that equipment and it's struggling more and more to the point where it's actually causing the equipment to become end of life that much quicker. So
When is the end of life?
it all depends. I mean, for a typical, rooftop mechanical, I think the architects will tell you, the mechanical companies will tell you 20 years. The majority of the stuff that you see here is from '02 or earlier. There are some things on the list that are 50 years and older. So there's a wide range of things.
Well, I think we need to make sure first and foremost that that gets handled because really the filtration and the air is part of the issue with this virus. And even if this virus, even if everybody gets vaccinated, the virus is still going to be around for a while. So we have to be realists and make sure that that's one of the top priorities, more so than some of the other things.
Air quality, hands down, is the first and foremost thing we look at when we start talking about building healthiness and everything. The other things that you'll see on here that didn't come in the list with fresh air considerations would be something such as the redundancy pumps at Pearl. 2 weeks ago, we had a day where we lost one of the circulation pumps at Pearl, and it caused us to lose heat in half the building. It's the only building in the district that does not have a backup circulation system. So when we talked about this 2 weeks ago, we started looking at fresh air requirements throughout the district. We also started looking at things that will maintain the integrity of the mechanical systems to the best of our ability, that being extremely important. So that's why there's a couple of items, and I could go through each and every one if you like, but that's why there's a couple items that are a little bit outside of fresh air, but they are absolutely based upon the comfort of the occupants of each area.
Thank you.
Yep.
And that money is going to, what you sent us in the FYI,
Correct.
and that's the dollar amount, that's the total?
I walked the entire district with the outside contractors. We went through every
I'm
single.
not against upgrading the air thing, I don't like the way we're transferring money, that's,
Understood.
so it's not really your concern there, Jonathan.
No, understood.
Okay, so anybody have any more questions? on the consent agenda? Okay, I need a motion and a second to accept items 2 through 8.
Motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. I need a motion and a second for item number 9, budget transfers.
Motion.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I vote to abstain on that. Okay, with no items removed, we are now up to new business discussion. So the first topic is the budget. Richard, you're up. You want to do it? I don't need any.
Thank you, Becky. Good evening, everybody. So since our last meeting, the draft revenue budget was revised to reflect a tax levy of 2.2, down from the tax levy limit of 2.9. In addition, the appropriated fund balance has been increased $1 million from 3.6 to 4.6. Oh, Jesse, I'm sorry, the next slide. And the unemployment reserve increased to reduce the impact of taxpayers. As of today, March 23rd, the governor's office and the Division of Budget has yet to provide their legislative budget. So at 2 points throughout the winter and barely spring, in January, then usually typically March, we get the legislative budget. However, that's delayed. The state of New York has to put through their budget and adopt their budget by April 1st. So school districts are just waiting for any day after April 1st to find out what the legislative budget will be, and that impact is state aid. So the stimulus bill, how that will impact the state of New York, what school districts will receive, hopefully on top of what we've already been given with the executive budget, and that will have implications there, which will revise our budget with only 2 meetings remaining until budget adoption. So the draft revenue budget is 202,806,368. And on the next slide, the draft 21-22 expenditure budget maintains all current instructional and co-curricular programs. It provides continuing professional staff development, provides personal protective equipment for students and staff, health and safety upgrades, and upgrades to address findings in our internal audit report and from our insurance through NYSERD. The next slide is a deeper detail into the expenditure budget. So school districts must develop a balanced budget, which means that the revenue budget must match the expenditure. In the first column all the way to the left, where you see 1,000 all the way down to 99.99. Those are function codes. The term function refers to the purpose of the expenditure, and all school district expenditures, every single codes follow the uniform system of accounts pursuant to the Commissioner of Education and the Office of the State Controller. So the function codes that represent general support are Board of Education, District Clerk, Superintendent, Business, Legal Services, Human Resources, Plant and Facilities, and Central Printing. General support function totals $21,243,015, or 11% of the 21-22 budget. The function codes that represent instruction are curriculum development, supervision, professional development, teaching, instructional equipment, contracted expenses, special education services, pupil personnel services, and athletics. And instruction totals $107,361,278, or 53% of the budget. The function code that represents transportation are direct transportation services, transportation staff, field trips, garage operation, and contract transportation. Transportation totals $10,334,990, or 5% of the expenditure budget. Undistributed expenses include employee benefits, debt service, interfund transfers, and undistributed expenses total $63,867,085, or 31% of the expenditure budget. So since all school districts have to balance their budgets, the revenues must meet the expenditures. The overall draft expenditure budget totals $202,806,368, which is a 1.69 increase over 2021. The next slide.
We can just move on at one slide, because we're like at this one.
I do have a question on that one slide. That 1.69,
Yes,
last year, how much, what was the percentage that we had, when we were at 15%, we brought it down, what was it last year?
well, we were at 15%.
Yeah, over the, amount allowed by law to have excess, the fluff.
Okay. So we were over the 4%, but
Yes.
barely, because we also utilized the $3 million to get us through COVID expenses, which were the additional staff.
Okay. But last year, how much was that, what was that percentage?
That percentage was just over 4%. It's not the 11%. It's $11 million overall, but it wasn't.
It was $11 million over 4%.
Yes.
Right. So, and of that $11 million, we took some of it and we put it into reserves.
Yes, and some of it we used
And
to
then we
appropriate
used $7
for
million
this.
like COVID and that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
With this 1.69% increase, what will that give us on the balance? Because I don't see any line items that have gone down, by the way.
So every single year, all 5 bargaining units, every single one of those salaries, based on their contracts, are all going to go up. Your employee benefits, that's going to go up. Health insurance goes up, ERS goes up, TRS goes up. Those are all tremendous expenses that are big parts of the pie.
But there's a lot of money in there. There's $11 million last year. So there's gotta be at least that amount this year because we're raising. There's gonna be at least $10 million, I'm gonna say. But how do we get that number down? How do you get that $10 million down to $5 million so we don't have to go up that much? Our budget is at $10 million. If you take $10 million at the top, it's less than last year's budget. We don't need 202. We're really pushing this on our taxpayers. I said last year that I was gonna push for it not to go over 200 million, and it's over 200 million. So how do we get that down? There's at least $10 million in fluff. That's what I want down, but I'm gonna personally not approve the budget. I don't know what my other board members are gonna do, but I won't do it again. This is my third year, and I let it slide twice, because you already did the first year. So the second year, and the first year that you were give you some room, I can't do it this year. So it's gotta come down.
Since all of those,
So wait, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you want to lower it to $10 million?
No, I don't want it over 200 million.
So then you wanted to cut $2,800,000.
3 million.
Yeah.
Almost $3 million.
Yeah.
so if we're going to cut $3 million,
$7 million left after that, still two. For reserves. I'm just asking, are we gonna be able to do that?
The only thing that every budget is the ability to refund the reserves, which is something that every school district does. So
But
when you,
not to
when
the
you,
level that we do, there's a
But-
lot of money
but
for our
when you talk
taxpayers, a
about,
lot.
when you talk about floods, you're actually.
You're asking us to
Can you go back?
burden our taxpayers more.
Can you go back one slide? I'm more sorry. So when you begin to look at the revenue that we're using to bring the burden to the taxpayer down, we're looking at 4.6 million from appropriated fund balance, 3.3 from other miscellaneous reserves, 1.6 from workers' comp, 1.1 from employee benefit reserves, 3.4 from ERS reserves, 1.49 from TRS reserves.
Right, these are all things that are going up, but you're able to take money from there because we have $10 million sitting out there. Why?
That money,
There's a
that
family
money,
audience right now that I was on the budget advisory committee with. They'll tell you too. We've gone through this budget a million times. Linda, you know this, you've been here for 6, 7 years now, 8 years, I don't even know what it is now.
but that
there's no
money, that money exists in the budget, so that
Okay.
we can refund it.
You guys don't wanna do that? I'm telling you right now, I'm not gonna vote the budget. I don't believe that you guys do the right thing. That's that. That's it. My questions are over, my lady, go.
I thought I was gonna ask my questions at the end of the presentation.
Well, the slide was there, so I don't wanna lose my place, so. Doing this.
Okay, please move forward to where the presentation, there we go. Thank you.
So I'm gonna speak about the staffing, update. We have, this year, we had a lot of expenses due to COVID. We had a virtual program that we had to implement. We had stuff that was going on at the elementary level. We're happy to say that as the governor relaxes a lot of these mandates, we may not need the level of staffing that we currently have. So there aren't any real specifics that I can speak of in terms of what is being cut, because we really don't know. We're just assuming that, we may not need the level of instruction that we currently have at the elementary level or even at the secondary level due to the virtual program not being as robust as it currently is. So if we move everything back to the staffing or the budget parameters that were given to us at the elementary level, you can see the class sizes there, K through 5, they all average under 20. So we're not really talking about anything significant, and we can still maintain an average of less than 20 per class. Yes?
This is my issue with this. This says that these are the averages. So the averages aren't necessarily like, this says 5th grade 19.9, 4th grade 18.9. That's the average. So if we take the school, I don't have the numbers in front of me, I know one year you guys gave it to us with the complete breakdown, which is what I like, where it shows us the exact class sizes.
And we'll provide that again.
But here's the thing, if you take the 2 small schools and you take their number of students, and there's this classroom, which I know there have been with like 12 students in it, and now you take the bigger elementary schools, we have like 2 big, 2 very small, and you take them and they have 25 students in them or 24 students, which is what they have, at least I know for this year, then this isn't really necessarily small class sizes. So before we start talking about, I'm just letting you know where I stand, one vote. Before we start cutting personnel, we need to get serious about all the schools across the Network having similar class sizes, equal equity
I agree
across
with
the
you, Jackie.
district. I don't think it's fair to say, because this school, and I'll use, Sycamore and Cherokee, their class sizes should be 24, and yet John Pearl and Idlehour, their classes should be 9 to 12. And I don't know if those are the classes, I'm just throwing out what numbers I've seen in the past.
And Jackie, that breakdown that you're talking about,
What
I
is this
certainly
list?
will.
Is this everybody, every school?
This is the elementary average.
Lee, but what they're giving you is an
I
average.
understand.
So I agree with you, Jackie. Being a former math teacher, averages are a little sometimes misleading, and therefore,
It does seem misleading.
Yeah, it is, no, it is, and it's not your guys' fault, I understand what you're saying, it's just that I wanna make it very clear. Before we start talking about accessing anybody, I wanna make sure that class sizes are small.
Well-
Especially with COVID, okay? Especially since now I know for a fact that we have the rooms in the buildings, because originally I was told we didn't, and now, since we made those, the 5th graders have the half and half, we know that there are extra classrooms if we really needed to make classrooms. So I would prefer to bring this number down closer to like 15, 16, 17 max.
Especially
Okay.
if COVID outbreaks again, and you want to have the full, like this. Besides COVID, I agree with that too.
And we'll have the full breakdown.
Cut $3 million.
Look, listen,
Because they have $10 million extra.
here's
There's nothing to do with
the
it.
issue. I don't think we should be talking about September as if it's gonna be a normal school year. I hope it is, for the children's sake and for the staff, I hope. But the reality is, if we're really being realists, there's gonna be a lingering virus that's still gonna be around of some sort. And I'm not saying let's not bring as much normalcy back as possible, because I'm for that. But I've always been for smaller class sizes. You know that's been always a big thing with me, especially elementary, when they really need it. And I don't think it's fair to say, because these are two bigger schools, their class sizes should double with some of the other schools. But I also don't think that it's not their fault that the schools that are smaller, then we should say they gotta have bigger class sizes. I think we should just look to, instead of excessing staff, see if there's staff that we might need to move around to make sure that the class sizes are smaller. And what about
Jackie,
bringing back the specials? Are we looking to bring back like the math specials and things that the kids
Yes.
are really struggling with?
So we are bringing back a lot of the programs, most of the programs, being, the science and engineering, all of the other reading specialists, all of the math specialists, those things we're bringing back. And Jackie, I think your point is very well taken. We aren't looking to cut staff. We're looking to have class sizes that are, I'm not going to say manageable, although I do kind of mean it that way, but certainly within the budget guidelines and maybe even less than that. So I know the class you're talking about that you probably have in your head, and we are going to work to minimize the inequities that may seem to exist. Even with that, I don't know that the cuts are going to be substantial, simply because we've had a lot of retirees. We have retirees, especially at the elementary level, I believe there are 6 of them, that if we do need to minimize staffing, there are 6 elementary retirees that we have, that we can do a lot of things through attrition. There are other areas that we will look to replace. I know there's a counselor who's retiring, but we need a counselor, especially with the mental health issues. So we're not looking to cut that kind of stuff. But we will take what you're saying, and be able to present a lot. I know that Dr. Adams just handed everybody the actual breakdown per building of the class averages, per grade level. Sometimes, unfortunately, the cut points don't work, and we all know that. If there's 27 or 26 or 25 in one grade level, it does, having 12 in a class.
Well, I would, to be perfectly honest with you, I would rather you cut a class to 13 and 12 if possible, rather than excess somebody and have a class of 25, because you know what happens? Most people won't say it, but throughout the school year, and I know we've seen it happen, you have a kid get transferred here, or 2 kids get transferred here, or a kid come from maybe inclusion and move them into a straight general ed, or special ed, move up to inclusion, whatever the case is. If you have that happen mid-year, now you just added 26 kids. Now you have 27 kids. I would rather err on the side of safety, especially if we have excess teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I just will remind everybody that we do have 12 virtual elementary sections. I don't know, and Jackie, from your lips to God's ears, maybe things will be back to normal, but if they're, even as the governor relaxes some of these requirements, we may not need 12 elementary virtual sections. I don't know that for sure, depending on how parents feel about sending their kids back to school. But certainly, as I said, through the retirement and through attrition, we're looking to access as few people as possible, if at all.
And just so you're aware, the numbers that I just handed you involve if every child came back to every building. So what you have in front of you, I apologize, I thought I had 6 copies and I only had 5, and I kept one for myself so I could go through the numbers, but now I've given it to Martha. That's if every single child returns from the virtual environment. So it's likely those numbers will go down if we continue to have at least 1 class on each grade level at the virtual environment. So the classes are definitely smaller than they've ever been.
I want to say, I'm just looking at this year, for instance, right? And I'm only just because I'm looking at it. You have 25 for our largest elementary in fifth grade. You have for 4 sections of 25. That should have 100% been cut to 5 sections of 20.
Yep.
And again, I don't even like that. I'd like to go to 6 sections, but if we're staying within budget guidelines, the reality is 25 is too much in a classroom.
Yes.
I personally think, especially now, when you have parents and some students who are uncomfortable with the social distancing, whatever the case may be. I still want to be, at least for the next school year, very clear on the numbers. That, I think 25 is too many. I understand in New York City schools, me and Michael have had these discussions, I know that they have bigger classes, but the idea of being in Connecticut and being on Long Island,
Yeah.
people expect the smaller class sizes, and I'm very much not for seeing the 25 on.
Because we
You
don't
get-
want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
slow
Before I
down.
access, I'm just letting you know, before I vote to
Jackie,
access
there's no
anyone,
one slow.
even one person, I will vote it all down.
Yeah.
Because there's no way I'm gonna say yes to a 25 in one school, when you can make easily one more class out of it, easily.
Jackie, I think we've heard you loud and clear, and the board for that matter, and we'll make sure that we get our class sizes equitable.
Right, so, but
We
again,
used to have- we used-
if you look back at, you know, the planning for this current school year, that 25 wasn't a real number because we planned to have those classes split. So if you look at the current year, the projected year, the 2022 school year, 21-22 school year, you'll see that classes are significantly lower. We did add those sections in to make sure that it was equitable across the district. If there are areas that you find of concern that you still want to have us look at, you know, we'll definitely go back and look at those sections to make sure that they're as equitable as possible.
Now, years ago, there used to be, for K through 3, I think it was, I don't remember anymore. Our max was 17 at one point for those grades. I know when it changed. I know why it changed.
So enlighten us, ladies, tell the rest of the world why you changed and when.
It changed under a superintendent who felt as though class sizes were too small. So he changed it.
But it had to
And he
change
got
the board approval, right?
board majority to do that.
Okay.
That's how it happened. So at one point, I think, I'm sure you can go back and find that information.
So with the board majority now, we can say we want it that to be smaller.
Well, you just can't say that right now, you have to look at the list, you have to discuss it.
Well,
Of course, well, we're not really looking at a list, but, you know, I mean, I think it's great, something that you have to.
I think,
Different grades.
I think that we can agree though, if it was 17, right, I actually think that's a great number. I like it even lower, but I think 17 is a good number. I think-
Lower than that.
But I think that 25 is not a good number, because the truth of the matter is, if you get another student or your class, go up to 26 or 27 in a classroom, and I just think it's unfair to have one
No.
teacher teaching 26
But if I
kids.
The upper grades were higher, the upper grades were higher.
I'm just saying, right here, we got 13.
And that
Right
teacher's
here, you
going to
got
be
13
overwhelmed.
kids. Hold on, 13 kids in the class here, then we go down the list to another school, and we got, you got 20 in a class. You got 22 in a class. So
And that's
that's
other year.
4th, 5th, and 6th, you kind of get, was for older, you know, you had a large amount. of
See, and
students.
I disagree, because I think 4th and 5th, you're getting ready to take a big leap.
Yep.
The next step. When you go from 5th grade to 6th grade, it's a huge leap. That's what I did my 6th grade in Connecticut at Cherokee, and then it was 7, 8, and 9 when we went years ago.
Right,
It was like that, because at 6th grade, you're going into there, and it's now very different from your teacher just having one teacher, not moving, staying in one classroom, everything being done for you with that one person. I just think 5th grade is very important. I think if you're leaping into the next, after middle school to high school is important, but you're.
I know, but once you're in
So
5th grade,
Jackie, so according to what you want, Jackie, you want 7 more teachers, that's over $1 million.
that's a lot of
ID
teachers.
wants to cut 3 million from the budget. So I got $1 million here, 3 million here, that's $4 million. So
Well, I'll tell you what,
I mean, I don't know where all this money's coming from, I don't know how.
okay, well, I don't
You're
want,
asking for over $1 million.
no, I'm asking, well, here's the thing. I'm not gonna excess This is not the last year, I'm not gonna excess,
You
but
said ideally 20 in a class, so anything that was above
Less.
20, anything that was above 20, I counted. That's 7. That's 7 teachers that you wanna do, so you got 21, right? In a class, you wanna break that down, you wanna add another teacher, so I'll give you an example, okay, 22. So you wanna add, there's 90 kids in the class, there's 4
Do 18.
sections. So,
Five
yeah,
of
so now you wanna go 5,
Yes.
so what's not 5 of 90? So, yeah, 18, so you wanna do that.
Going from 22 to 18.
Mylin, if we
Yeah,
have a cushion, in the budget. And
We
it's
do
there
a
for
lot.
reasons like COVID, like the PPE and all that stuff that, things that could happen. But here's the thing, I'm personally not gonna vote to excess a bunch of staff and make kids be 25 in the class. I'm just telling you
I
the thing.
understand that, you're asking for 7 teachers, that's over $1 million.
I'm asking for smaller
I mean,
class sizes.
Bridget, can that be done? Cut the 3 million and add 1 million.
No, that cannot be done.
Just stop, we have 10 million, why can't that be done? Then you're only taking 4, you still have $6 million.
Why don't we wait
Okay.
to see what we get?
So the next,
Just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but,
And I'm saying 10 million conservatively, I'm sure there's more.
to Jackie's point about the class sizes. So right now, we're estimating the current level of staff, based upon having our virtual program relatively the same as what it is now. That provides some flexibility for us as well as you to say to us that, okay, so if we're not running a full virtual program, let's shift some of that staff back to the elementary school to lower those certain grade levels in the class size. So we do have a little bit of flexibility, and that's why we didn't specifically outline the number of reductions or positions. Because we still need to see what the guidance is going to be for September. We still need to have that flexibility to develop that program that is in the best interest of our kids from a safety standpoint, from an educational standpoint, and also, to have the opinion of the board as far as, the direction of the program. So we do have, we're not accessing anybody at this point. When you look at the class sizes, there's nothing that is 25 at this point for next year. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Well, that's on here.
If you
That's on here.
identify any grade levels that you're concerned about in any buildings, you can definitely go back and look and adjust that.
Well, it's just that I wanna just make this, I don't recall last year seeing 25. And I know why I didn't see the number 25, because like you said, it was half. It was half in one classroom, half in another. I still don't find that that's reasonable. I actually think that is, if I would have seen that, I might not have voted for it last year. What I'm saying is, I don't wanna see that this year at all. I don't wanna see 24, 25 in class, when you have other classes that are 13. When you have other classes that are 16 or 17 or 15, 14. I mean, I'm looking down the list here. We got 13, we got 14, we got 10.5.
No, so I think when you look at the current average class size by building, which is that last column.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is it's very unfair that the larger schools
Right, so.
do not have additional staffing for the overflow of the kids. Rather than you having 25, that should be cut and one person should be added there.
Right,
And then
so-
maybe the other schools, if you could put together, that's a little different.
Right.
I mean, 10 is a little bit crazy. Like, so I'm looking at this and it says 10. It says 10.5. So you have other classes in other schools, okay, that are at over 20 for that same grade level. And yet, this one is gonna be 2 at 10.5.
Right.
So why wouldn't
Because
you
it's
just do
that,
21?
having 42, kindergarten, 21 kindergarten students, that's what makes that.
And quite frankly, Jackie, just so you know, we left 2 sections there, this would not be 2 sections. We left 2 sections there because we don't know how many kids are
Right,
enrolled.
but that's what I'm saying to you, I understand, but just so you understand how misleading it is to someone like me, who's looking at this going, wow, the bigger schools have to have 22 kids in a class or 21, okay, and I'm looking right at it, the 20.5, and other schools have 10.5. I'm just saying, you have to understand.
But again, that's kindergarten where we have no enrollment for, so that's the projected enrollment. And we really never had in that building, less than 30 or so kids come into the district. When we did, we had a class of 24, we got 24 in one kindergarten class. So that was just to leave, because we don't know what that enrollment is and how we project, and we take this year's enrollment and we rolled it into kindergarten for next year. So you'll notice, if I look at Town Pearl, there were 31 kindergartners this year. There's anticipated to be 31 kindergartners next year. I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm just saying, I'm on the record for, I will not approve the budget that has 25.
So you have two board members telling you,
Yeah, I'm not.
lower class sizes, wait a second,
If I
two
see
board members saying,
25 in a class.
lower class sizes and keep the budget down and get rid of some of the fluff.
Okay, so we're.
That's what we're asking.
in
I don't know
agreement.
what the other three board members are going to say.
I don't want you to think this, I'm not trying to be argumentative. What I'm saying is look through those numbers and give us the feedback regarding which grade levels you think need additional staffing. And we'll make those adjustments, so, you know,
I think they were gonna say Cherokee, grade 5. Are they the only one that needs adjustment?
No, there's a couple,
There's a few of them.
There's 7. I
There's
counted.
Sycamore,
There's 7, I counted.
Slocum has one.
What
I'm
place
just,
is it?
listen, I'm just going off the
So
you
you
guys'
bring up
numbers.
about 20.
I'm just going off your guys' numbers, that's why I circled the couple. So I see some in Slocum, I see one in Slocum, I see 2 in Sycamore,
You
I
can't say that
see-
building, okay, that building.
1 in Cherokee.
You gotta be equitable across. If it's 20, 1,
Well, I have a problem with 25 in the class, because you know what happens?
I said.
And I did happen this year, that's why I know what happens.
So you
A
want
kid
to
comes back from virtual, or a child coming back, and now you have 26 in the class. And now you have 27 in the class. And then Linda,
Teaching
well,
assistant.
Linda says,
I'm a teaching assistant.
well, Linda says to me something like, with the parents, like us to sit that class, right? Yeah, they would, because they don't want to be their teacher, I don't care. So why should we put them in that position if we already know that kids that stay virtual, the virtual program stays in effect, as of January, they may want to come back, they just don't know.
But we have rules, extra teachers that are in the budget, right?
not extra, we're planning to, you know, to continue the program that we were before. So we do have, you know, there will be anticipated flexibility based upon the number of virtual students that decide to go.
So if, say the class went up to 27, would you, that could be, we split it with the teachers that we had in the budget?
Parents would want that.
Great.
For next year, yes.
Yeah. So if there was 27 in the class, they have to staff to split it. So
Right,
the 25 is
This
split.
is the question, this is the thing. If your child has been with a teacher, I'm going with 4th or 5th grade, if your child's been with a teacher that they like, do you think parents are gonna be lining up here and saying they're happy that their child now has a new teacher mid-school year?
No, we're
No, this
talking
one
about
happened
for
at the beginning of
the
the year.
21-22 school year. So,
No, that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm talking about, she's saying it's.
No, I'm saying at the beginning of the year, if it shows there's 27 kids, because kids came in, then I asked if they have enough staff.
yes,
If you have enough staff, you know, that you're budgeting for, to break that classroom down.
So then I thought it was in here.
No, and I just want to be clear, there's not one grade level projected at 25 next year. Not one on the whole sheet that's projected at 25. The highest grade level that we're looking at district-wide is 22.5 in class.
No, in fifth grade,
You guys
That's
never be free.
22.5. That is this year. So the column all the way to the right is the projection. So I think we were confused, that's why I want to clarify.
I'm not confused.
I'm not, I get it.
I'm
Everything
not
looks-
confused.
And I gotta ask you
yeah,
something,
she's,
is that even right? Is that even right, that 25? How many kids are right now enrolled in 5th grade at Cherokee? Because I was under the impression it's more than 100.
So this is taken off of this time last year.
No, I'm telling you, I believe the number's higher. I mean, it could be 105, 106, but if you just,
yep, we'll confirm. This also doesn't include any of our special classes.
Special factors.
so I think anything more than 20.
I can't hear you, lady.
You split.
Wait, is it 27 or 20?
you're anyway,
For fifth grade,
no,
Jackie just said 20. Is
Right.
it 27
For
or
fifth grade,
20.
She
we
said
never had that, even in the good
That's
days.
why if you
You
were
just
paying
said
attention, I
17.
said you're
You
adding
just
on
said
7 more
17.
teachers.
No, that was for K to 3.
I firmly believe that we should be fair and equity across with pre-K to 5. We should try to keep the numbers down as low as possible. When they go to middle school, high school,
Right now,
they're
it's
more
showing
independent
22,
learning.
it's not-
And in elementary school, I just think it's too much, 25 in a class, and then if you get another kid, and also you have to remember,
Jackie, you don't have any.
There are that, no,
It's showing that
wait,
next
I'm
year.
talking about this year.
Yes, well, we're
We're
not,
talking about
we
this.
can't worry about this year right now, we gotta go to next year.
Well, no, because what Jackie's saying is,
Just because it says 22.5 right now,
I mean,
does not mean that kids are not gonna move into our district
Make that
and
one
bring that
spot-
number over.
make that
That's
one
what I'm
spot
saying.
five.
If there is.
What do we, make that one spot 5? Now it's 18.
You
no,
know,
what
Okay,
we need
90
to do as a board
students.
is then
that's why I said
change the numbers.
No,
We
it's
have-
only
we
one
have to-
spot, that's really.
Linda, where are those numbers written in, they're in policy?
It's a,
Guideline.
guideline.
It's a budget guideline, so we need to change our budget guideline.
Not
That's what we
necessarily, we could just take direction from the board based on.
But even for future years, if we change it now, the budget guideline goes
I
by what
just
the
feel
board
like
wants.
it,
As you adopt the
Yeah.
guidelines each year, that's the time.
I just feel like there's a lot of students in 3, 4, 5 that have special needs
There should be.
and they're not yet diagnosed.
There should be equity.
There are, okay? If those children that have not been diagnosed, do not have 504s, but do have special needs, you put in a classroom 25 with one teacher, it's a lot. That's a lot.
1, 2, 3.
Because we don't know who they are, and sometimes you do get that.
Okay, Jackie, I think that they understand what we want, we're gonna move on now.
Yeah,
Yeah, the most important thing, we want to lower it, that's basically it. Don't shoot for 3 million, shoot to lower 5 million.
So wait a minute.
You know, so this way we get there.
So then the board needs to decide, because you can't sit there and say lower. Is it 20, and then when you hit 20, you split? I mean, you have to give some guidance, because right now, I see 21.
Jackie just had a 4-hour conversation with her
No,
about
no, no, I
guidance,
want
and I
clarification.
agree with her.
I want
Okay, wait,
clarification.
listen.
I want clarification on this.
You want
I
clarification,
heard,
you want
I
us
heard
to
you
give
say
them
anything
clarification.
over 20 is a split. So I got 21.5, 22.
That's not what I'm really saying. What I'm saying,
No, she said
Eileen,
she
is
wants equity across.
across the
Yeah, so
district.
you
So
want
there
that.
shouldn't be 10 and 11 in one school,
You
in one
can't have
grade,
10 and 11.
but then
I think
25
that's
in
good
another.
guidance. I think
That's
that
what I'm
explains
saying.
exactly what you.
So what I'm saying is, let me speak one
It's
second.
not gonna come with a.
What I'm saying is,
It's a guidance.
I'm not, exactly, it's a guideline.
Right.
I'm not saying if Linda came to us and Dean and said, we have 3 classes of K 21,
Let's finish.
I'm not gonna say, okay, no. What I'm gonna say is, there's no reason that we should ever see 25 on this paper again for general ed at all, because you can absolutely cut it one more time and make it 20.
So
That's what I'm saying.
I'm asking what is the cap? Because what is it? Is if it's 20, if it's above 20, is it a split? I just need clarification.
I would absolutely,
Or is it 22?
22, I wouldn't wanna see more than 22 in a classroom.
Okay,
I even
that's,
think that's high. I really like the 17, 18, but if we have to be budget guideline, I would say 22. I can put
All right,
your book
that's
in
what
at
I-
25.
I don't think you need to have a number, I think you said equity and cost. So if one school has 10 and another school has 22, then yeah, it's a split. That's it.
yeah, because she said
Not
20,
a
so
definitive number.
she said 20, so that means we're splitting a lot of classes. That's
No,
why
I'm saying that I really wanna see 20.
Equity.
At 20 or
I
below.
agree with equity. I know, I agree with
So then
equity.
you don't need a definitive number.
Yeah, you
Make sure
do.
that Slocum doesn't have
You
10.
do, because then that's when the inequity comes in. So you need a hard number to bring equity everywhere.
Okay,
You
but
can't sit there and
but
say
Mylene-
approximate this and that. You need a hard number for
Myron, you can't give a hard number, because like Linda
You
just
can.
said, I'll tell you why though. Because we have a class right here that has 10.5, right? So you're not gonna say to Linda, okay, you know, that's a hard number, you're gonna keep it.
No, 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 no.
She's
no.
saying that there's
No, no,
three
no, what I'm
types.
saying is not to exceed.
Okay,
A hard number not to
So
exceed.
what?
So the hard number not to
Right now,
exceed.
we'll lower them right now.
The hard number not to exceed
I would say it's
on
22.
3, 4, and 5 is 22.
Oh, no, on 3, I would say that, no, 3, I would say 20. 4 and 5, maybe 22.
Okay. So then
Okay.
kindergarten to 3 is a hard 20, and then 4 and 5 is a hard 22. That's it.
Yeah, and I really,
You have 61
and I'd really
students.
like to see them under 20 if possible. That's
You
all
have
I'm.
61 students.
So earlier we talked about classrooms. And one of the things that Jackie brought up was this year, we had enough classrooms to split 4 and 5. That's not true everywhere. There were places where kids were in the library, and all of our art and all of our music was pushed into the classroom. So it was a very different year, and that's why we always say, we don't have enough room. So we will look at these numbers, but to be honest with you, these numbers are lower than they've ever been historically since I've gotten here, because we tried to bring the numbers down. There's not one class in the district right now, not one, on the elementary level that's over 23. Not one.
That's right.
So, you know, and honestly, in the world that we're living in right now, that's really a good number of kids. You know, and I said, you know, the one where they're looking at the 10.5, we wouldn't leave that at 10.5.
But Linda,
You
I
would fund
see, I see right now, a second grade class with 22.5.
So that means that one class is at 23 and one class is at 22. And
And
I said,
I think
no
that's,
classes.
I think that's a lot for a second grade. Again, tell me, how many kids are not diagnosed with 504s or IEPs in second grade? Tell me how many children get denied them, parents are fighting for them in second grade. How many children go undiagnosed?
So that's really, honestly, second grade is where a lot of things where kids are not moving forward, that our teachers start to catch them. Again, every single kid in the district right now is accounted for, and the school that you're actually speaking about right now has a very large percentage of their kids in virtual. So it's potentially possible that we won't have 23 in any classes at all in that building, because so many of those kids are currently virtual. And they may ask to stay virtual next year, and we have allowed the idea to keep enough teachers in virtual environment in case parents are still in that concerned phase next year.
You wrote here that special education is not included. Are those, so say, for example, projected 2021 in, last year, the first one, says 33 kids.
Mhm.
Does that mean that those 33 kids are in separate classrooms, or they're going to be
So only.
integrated into these classrooms as well?
Only built, so the special ed number is our special class students, so those are our self-contained students.
Those are the self-contained ones. So the ones with IEPs or 504s that are in general ed, those are in those numbers.
What about inclusion? Does this include inclusion?
Yes.
The special ed, wait, the special ed numbers include inclusion, or the general numbers?
The general ed numbers.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll take the guideline, the numbers that you gave us as guidance, we'll go back and look at each of the grade levels, and we'll resend you an updated chart.
Thank you. Okay, so we have more on the budget presentation.
Oh, you guys questions? I got some.
Well, is there more to the presentation? Not good. Okay, so yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so I was looking through, where's the $100,000 for the Board of Education? Is that put in a separate line?
Oh, yeah, that's right, it wasn't really.
Because that really should be on the Board of Education line, we asked for that. We agreed to it.
Wait,
I will gladly, take that out.
no.
Yes, it should be out of your code, it should be out in the Board of Education.
Why should it be in the board of ed? What was $100,000 for?
So that any initiative that we see that we want, I don't have to, if you don't
Oh,
have,
you put, oh, okay.
it should be under
There was
ours.
also money that was taken from us and transferred to somebody else last year?
I don't wanna be paying for stamps.
No, remember we, well,
That was for the election, not
for the election, right?
Yeah, we should be paying for the
That's clear about
election.
it. Okay, that's fixed, okay. So you want $100,000 for initiatives for kids?
Correct,
I'm good with that.
yes, that's what I want.
Which is why we put it in curriculum, because it's really for kids, so it belongs in curriculum, but it.
But, so the thing is, if we ask for something, do I have to sit there and jump through hoops
No.
and wait a year and a half? If the Board of Education decides tomorrow, there's a very, very nice incentive or
It has to be
initiative for
curriculum.
kids,
An
do
initiative,
I have to beg again for a year and a half?
no, Marlene, we have to get.
No, so, the plan was to put.
I did have board support and I still waited a year and a half. I don't wanna do that anymore.
So the plan was, what we did was put it into the curriculum equipment code.
Say that again, Pete?
So we put it into, the curriculum equipment code, and that way it gives the board the greatest flexibility to use those funds, in addition to basic thing.
Okay, so, and then I will always do my research to see what other schools are doing. If you see something, Dean, obviously bring it up to the Board of Education and we'll do our due diligence to see something that we would like. So right now, in my opinion, we did something nice for the high school. I think we should think about the middle school, doing something very cool for the middle schools. So that would be split 50-50, 50,000, 50,000.
You're talking about like the table like we got from high school,
I mean, I would love something like that for the middle school. I would love that. I mean, Linda, can you tell us a little bit about that table since we haven't been able to see it?
We don't actually teach biology as a standalone at the middle school. When you look at middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science, it's an amalgam of all the different kinds of concepts of science and it spirals through. So there would be very little use for something along those lines. You might be more interested in putting some kind of engineering equipment.
Yes,
That we can use in technology, or that we can use as something from physical science into technology as a
Yeah,
collaborative.
but I would like to see more coding, more coding.
that's a good idea. I know you've been into that.
Instead of coding club, make it an actual
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
So,
I don't know how I feel about that.
But it's what they actually know about has to be technology.
yes.
Okay, so with that we can use, that money's there for us.
All right, so Dean, don't spend our money.
Yeah, that's for us, for our kids.
Yeah. Don't spend our money, so we'll figure out, I think as a board, we'll have a discussion, what we would like to
Okay,
see.
great.
Let me ask you something, does do you know of any programs that they're doing it out of middle schools, across Rhode Island, that we don't have, that would be kind of cool?
Well, that's not a discussion for now, we're talking about the budget, we can discuss
My
that.
question, that was it.
So we can definitely talk about expanding, we've had a lot of discussion about expanding our computer science and engineering. Right now, we have a very robust program at the elementary school. We have a very robust program at the high school, and we have been building over the past couple of years, a complement to that in the middle school, and I think this would be a nice addition.
That'd be great, I'm good with that.
Thank you.
I'm good with that.
Okay,
All right,
moving on. Oh, no, you have more questions.
the other question I had was, all right, I still see that horizontal movement that's there. I don't know if you want to, I know what it is. You want to explain to the public what the horizontal movement is, 720,000?
So horizontal movement takes place twice a year, first in September and second in February. So the individual has to put their paperwork in, it's verified by human resources, it sends a payroll for processing. And since payroll can't charge the individual budget posts because they don't know what's going to come their way, they charge the horizontal movement line. There.
Okay, so now the other question I'm gonna have is, this year, we had to expend 7 million to cover the PPE and to have additional staff. Now, going into this budget cycle, so it's still, I would assume it's still roughly around 2.5 million for PPE, cleaning supplies and everything that relates to that. And then you still have the 4.5 million in staff. Is that a carryover again for this year? Because I do see that you did decrease a lot of line items. I even noticed that you did decrease a couple of like supplies for, the supply codes. Right at the top of my head, I saw science. I'm like, why are we decreasing on science and things like that? Where Jackie wants to see more stable class sizes, and I do agree with that. But I also want to see more money put into our programs. Again, just a little tapping on what Dean was saying about the coding and stuff like that. Just supporting these things. And then I'm seeing less money for science. We should be putting more money into science, not less money into science.
I hear you loud and clear. All buildings and departments were tasked with go through everything, make sure you have quotes in place. It can't be a rollover budget. The other thing that was looming over our heads was state aid. We had no idea what was going to happen, and we didn't know until later on in the process that we're going to be fine. And now we're just waiting for the legislative budget to find out if we're going to get an extra boost, like it's Mario Kart, with additional funds. So science submitted their budget, and they submitted, this is what we need, this is what we have based on quotes, and it's really just for their research, both on equipment and for supplies.
Wow, I saw another line of science too, and that's science research. No, I saw something else.
Yes.
So-
Why do you want to do that, though? I have a question
So
based on that. Hold on, Dean, 1 second.
Let me just finish the question.
Hold on 1 second. That, when you do that, when you've done these things with the, now I'm not question for it.
Science research?
No, when you do the, when they submit their quotes and they do this thing, are those wants or needs?
They had to be needs this year.
Okay.
Okay, so I understand that.
So In my codes, I do subsidize the science department as well, as we move to the next gen standards with more hands-on manipulates as such. So that is included, a lot of that is included in my budget.
Yeah, so again, I agree with you, I wanna see more ham and uploads, I think the kids, I understand with COVID, can't touch a lot of things, but I think children need to touch, I think they need to feel, experience, and see how things move or whatever it is. Reading something out of a book, seeing it virtual, that means nothing, I want them to have more of that creativity and be a little bit less off their screen. I think they already have too much screen time, I'm hoping that going into the next year, we're gonna have a lot less screen time and a lot more manipulatives, if that's the way you call it, what it's called, Dean. I wanna see more of that. I think, I get a headache seeing this for 7 hours, I get a headache, it's too much, and we gotta get the kids off of that. I understand, this is the generation we're in, we have to get technology savvy, I get all that, but there's gotta be some off time from the screen. We've already experienced too many hours of that. My other question is, approximately in this budget, does it go up, roughly $3 million, whatever it is? How much of that is, in salaries, approximate? So I know 80% of the budget is salaries, so, and is that the average salary around 2.3%?
Yes, so out of the 5 bargaining units, it's roughly a 3% increase. Overall, it's about $94 million out of the 5 bargaining units, that's not including the non-aligned staff.
Gotcha.
What it went up.
It goes up about.
How much was the non-aligned staff? How much did they go up?
I don't have that, but I can absolutely get that.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
So this year, 94.
Yeah, the rate, the salary union contracts go for about 3% every year.
94,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Melanie, do you have any other questions?
No, but I'm sure I'll have more at the next meeting, I can try us through this.
Right, Mike, I have a question, one question.
On the budget?
Yeah, in budget, I'll do, the bicycle safety is next, so I'll leave that.
Okay.
But this is, what are we doing with the auditoriums? Parents have been asking me, what are we doing with that space? They say it's a lot of, wasted space that we could be doing stuff with. You could, like, utilizing it for some sort of, I'm talking about secondary level. So, middle school and high school, what are we doing?
John can speak to the renovations that are currently taking place in those schools.
That's what I wanted to hear.
And then, he can also speak to that.
So one of the projects that is currently ongoing is both middle schools are in the process of being renovated. The way they were partitioned in the past, there used to be 2 large walls that would allow it to be separated into 3 separate spaces. Based upon conversations with administration and past experiences, going back several decades, they were not being used. So one of the biggest pieces of it right now that's going to increase the functionality of it is increasing the size of the stage itself. So they're gonna be able to actually put the full band, the full orchestra, instead of having the kids, I think at RMS, they actually meet in the cafeteria, because that's a larger space that they have in the actual stage. The stage will actually allow the classes to meet in the auditorium, and it'll be someplace that they can use for all the performing arts as well.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, John,
Moving right along, I guess, any more questions on the budget?
I'm good.
Right, good?
I just want to say one more thing, I know Eileen left the room, but she can hear this later. So, I hear everyone loud and clear, I will send to the Board of Education in my FYI this coming Friday, the increase for non-aligned staff, for all 5 bargaining units, implications as far as ERS, TRS, and all the other benefits that increase to show you
Yes,
how
yes.
much more it takes, and how much of a dollar bill of that is, 80%
Yes.
to people.
Yes, yes.
I think that really needs to be stressed, that really needs to be seen, and the next PowerPoint that I do give on April 13th, I will make sure to address reserves, I will make sure to address unassigned fund balance, we'll go through the whole thing, so I also went back through the statutory 4% for the unassigned fund balance, we were at 5.53, but you also have to note and remember that school was out from March to June, so we had much less in expenditures than we ever would have. Now we're back, everyone's fully in, it's a somewhat more normal year, but we are absolutely working to get under that 4%. So April 13th, I will do reserves, I will do all of that, and everything else that you have taxes, but we hear you loud and clear.
I agree, Bridget, because that's the number that people need to see, what the salaries, what the units are, the health benefits, that really needs to be separated, because that's the majority of his budget. You know, so that's why I'm always saying, you know, I'm always getting on Dean's case, I want more, I want more, I want more, you know, for the students as far as programs and things like that. But I understand, we have a very tight budget to even ask for that. So that's why I'm asking for the Board of Education to at least have that piece with 100, so that at least we have something to look forward to and to dedicate to, like now the next group would be the middle school.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions on the budget? Moving on to bicycle safety letter. This is something too that I just want to say that, the Civic Association has addressed many times. And now that the Northampton Civic is no longer, the incidents seem to have been increasing again. Jackie brought this up again too. And the Civic was here 100 times, or calling the school 100 times about bicycles. Lee, I'm surprised that you didn't know about this, because we actually had a child that was killed from Connecticut, when O'Shea, we not too long ago. So this is something that's very serious. Linda, you want to take us to what you're doing now, with what we're doing with this letter?
Yeah, so, the board was very concerned, with some of, as the weather gets nicer, we're seeing an uptick in bicycling, which is wonderful, because it's a great, healthy activity, when it's done safely. What we're seeing across the island, it's not just Connecticut, so I'm not gonna point fingers at the Connecticut
Right.
community.
And it's not recent either, I
It's
mean,
across the island, we're seeing large groups of.
Wait, you step 1 second. Excuse me, Eileen, you just said something that's not true. I think I'm the one that brought this whole issue up to Jackie and to Linda. In an
Oh,
email.
well, then I apologize, but just so that you know, the Civic has brought it up many times to the
Well,
school
I
district.
personally saw a group of 20 kids on
Right.
bike.
Right,
It
okay,
was-
I apologize, I thought that was Jackie that brought it up. Was it a text message or something? I don't know.
I saw it.
Right.
I knew you said you saw it, I brought it up.
But in that message,
Wasn't that?
my point was, Lee, was in that message, you said that this was new to you? That you hadn't seen it like that before?
I haven't seen kids in that large of a group in my neighborhood. I have not seen it, I saw it twice this year.
So what I'm saying to you is it has been going on in Northampton for quite some time, that's all I'm
Right,
saying.
but not in my neighborhood.
Okay, well, now it's turning.
Well, the truth of the matter is, I'm gonna tell you also, you hear it from me first, it's happening everywhere. It's happening in Nassau County, it's happening in Suffolk County, the police get called
It's been in the news.
numerous times. While me and Linda sat next to each other during a security safety unit meeting, I was emailing and texting, messaging some of our, government officials, and they were answering me back on what we could do. But unfortunately, the only thing that we could do is this letter, because they already voted down the bill that was there to try to help for the reckless biking. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people that see kids on bikes and just say they're acting reckless because there's 20 of them. That's not necessarily true, okay? Kids who are riding in packs are riding in packs, and some kids, it's just because right now during COVID, it's the only thing they have to do. So you can't say they're wrong like that. The issue is the kids that are doing wheelies, the kids that are riding in and out of buses, the kids that are acting reckless and don't realize that the drivers are doing the best not to hit them, but you're putting drivers in a very bad position because sometimes they can't see the kids, riding and the kids ride right out in front of them. So before tragedy hits, we had asked at the safety meeting to go over this, and there's a lot more going on across the island. It's not Lee's neighborhood, it's not my neighborhood, it's not, but we here, I confident, it's everywhere across the island. You see Raina Park is a big issue, you see the other school districts, me and Mylene reached out to Sachem, and they said they have issues over there. I know by me, there's issues in Nassau County.
And sometimes, some of the kids are not just riding around in big, large groups, they're actually weaving in and out of traffic, they're going in front of cars to slow them down, and they know that if the police come, they're minors, nothing can happen to them. The problem is, if it does happen to them, they can get killed. And that happened in our school district, Linda, wasn't it last year?
2019.
2 years ago?
2019, me and Mylene went to the.
I knew it was not too long ago. Okay, so this letter is something that you're asking, or the board, we all asked to send up to our legislators, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what I did was I sat with the emergency team at the district level. We talked about education, which is a wonderful part of everything that we do, but education really is not enough. Because if there is no enforcement, education without enforcement equals they can do whatever they want. So I did reach out to our local legislators. I reached out to Legislator Silney and Legislator Pigrilla. And I spoke to them about what we could do as a district to try to help them pass something that would allow enforceable actions and consequences if people are recklessly biting. I don't care what the age is. And so what I was told was there was actually two separate resolutions. One was Bill 17 IR, instructor resolution number 1767, 2020, which was put on the table. It was voted on, it passed the vote, and then County Executive Malone vetoed it. It went back to committee, and they could not come to resolution as to what terms they wanted, so this bill is actually dead. But now there's another resolution, introductory resolution number 1191, 2021, which is very similar in its intent. It's to discourage reckless biking in Suffolk County. So if you'll allow me to read the letter, my suggestion would be, because both of our local legislators, Legislator Silney and Legislator Grillo, both said that we as a board and as a district should send it to the clerk of the Suffolk County Legislature, and she would be able to distribute it to every legislator in the district, so they would all see that we were serious about it. So, it says, Dear Suffolk County legislators and county executive alone, it was with great disappointment that our district watched as IR 1767 2020, which would have permitted a local law to prevent reckless biking in Suffolk County, get vetoed by the county executive. After all, how can anyone think that a bill that could potentially curb dangerous and reckless operation of bicycles on county roads, which puts the safety of everyone on the road at risk, should not proceed into law? In the intention statement, a further intent of this law was to safeguard minors, which there have been several instances of minors being seriously injured or killed in accidents associated with reckless bicycling here in Suffolk County in recent years. The Connecticut community has not been immune to this tragedy, as we lost one of our students and others have been injured in these types of behaviors. However, an additional bill, IR 1191, 2020, has been proposed that also discourages reckless biking in Suffolk County. The intent of this bill also is to curb bicycle operations that are dangerous to cars, pedestrians, and the bicyclists themselves, thereby seeking to protect actions that endanger our community and our minors, who are often bicyclists that may not be making safe decisions while on our county roads. The superintendent, together with the Board of Education, support the passage of this legislation, protecting both our community drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Please safeguard our community's roads and pass this legislation. So if the board is okay with this,
Lee has the letter, every one of us. has signed it already.
every one of you has a letter, I have now.
No, wait, we've signed it and passed that, Lee has it now.
Okay, I just need, I need a motion and a second and a vote in order for me to action on this and send it to the
I
county
need a
legislature.
motion and a second to accept and sign the letter that Linda has just read in public.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
The letter is now signed.
Perfect, thank you. We need to safeguard our kids and have them make their decisions.
The next topic up is the letter of support for the New York State Ed's requested test waiver. Is this opting out? Is this
Not really, I'll tell you what it means.
okay, because I also want to piggyback on this with the do no harm policy. I want to talk about that,
Okay, and I
that
think,
goes with this.
I think probably the genome harm policy I'm gonna turn over to Ms.
Okay.
Middleman, because we've had discussions with administrators and teachers, and I think we need to just lay low for a second and let them come up with something for us. But let me talk to you about this first. Last year, when the school districts were closed, all of the mandated federal testing programs were waived. In order to receive title funds, you must give tests 3 through 8 and at the commencement level in both mathematics and English language arts and science. Those were waived last year. This year, they have not been waived as a general rule. So New York State Education Department saying that this is one of the most unprecedented years ever for the education of our students. And even though our teachers have been doing an unbelievable job, it is not the same situation that our students and our teachers would have encountered in any other school year. Because of that, New York State Education Department has gotten kind of waived the Regents exams that are not part of the federally mandated program. So you'll see, I sent to the board last week that there are only certain Regents exams that we are mandated to give, and the 3 through 8 ELA and math assessments. So our students would be asked to take the Living Environment Regents exam at the end of any Living Environment course. They would be asked to take Earth Science, the Physical Setting, Earth Science Regents exam. Those are 2 mandated by the federal government. They would be asked to take Algebra 1 Regents exam, which is the commencement level Regents exam for our algebra students in math. They would also be asked to take our English 11th Regents exam, which is the commencement level that is mandated by the federal government.
Now, they just have to take them. That doesn't mean pass them all, right?
So New York State is likely to pass, and the Board of Regents needs to put it into a practice, and that's why I think we're a little too early to talk about it, harm policy, because we want to see what the Board of Regents does first.
Well, it's March. It's not that early to talk about it.
No, but the Board of Regents hasn't passed anything yet. It's still in comment period, so until they pass it, I think it may be a little bit early. They are likely to just ask kids to take it and not hold it against them as a graduation requirement if they do not pass that.
I'm talking about the do no harm policy that goes through if they take it, and we add it as part of their grade, a percentage of their grade.
Right.
We
We can do that here, that's not too early to talk about.
We brought that up didn't we bring it up last meeting?
We did, and I'm gonna request again that the Board of Education let our educators discuss it first and come to you with a proposal rather than the board laying a proposal on our educators. Because we do wanna make sure that our kids are fully engaged in good learning all the way through the end of the year, and we need our educators to tell us how they can have that happen. So I'm gonna ask the board
We're gonna be really
respectfully.
fully engaged this year with COVID, that's my point, just for this year alone.
I
I'm not saying
don't
spend all
disagree with you, Eileen, but I think we need to let our educators and our educational leaders talk about it and bring you a proposal rather than the other way around. Just because they're the people in the trenches with the kids every
Well, I would
day.
like them to do that sooner rather than later.
But this is what I'm saying, are you guys having, active conversations right now with the teachers, and that's what,
I'll let
it's not
you
just-
speak and then I'll go back to what the letter is
no,
about.
but it's not just, I'm
Finish the
saying,
letter first.
it's not just central office, I'm saying, okay.
So the New York State Education Department, so the Federal Education Department declared that they would not proceed with the same type of waiver that they did blanket last year, where they basically said nobody across any of the states, any of the 50 states, would need to take those commencement level or the 3 through 8 assessments. However, states could apply for specific waivers for each state. So the New York State Department of Education has applied for a waiver to not administer the Regents exams this year.
But I'm gonna ask a question, what if the kids are virtual, they have to come in and take the test if the waiver doesn't go through?
No, that's not true with it. And
That's not
again, the
I'm not
Board of
sure.
Regents has not passed anything yet.
So you don't know
They've got it, no, they've actually said that you do not need to bring kids who are virtual into a school
Okay,
building,
that-
and they will
alright.
not give them,
Okay.
but that has to be through a public comment period before it becomes
Okay,
enacted.
All right, thank you.
All right, so, this is for us as a school district saying, we recognize that this year is unprecedented, and we would really think that it would make sense for the New York State Education Department's waiver to be approved at the Federal Department of Education. So, the letter reads, Dear Senator Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, and Congressman Zeldin. To say that the 2021 school year has been unprecedented is an understatement. We ended our last school year in a complete shutdown with virtual education that no one was ready for. As a district, we reopened in September after spending more than $7 million to decrease class size, increase teaching staff, teaching, custodial, and support staff, purchase and maintain appropriate PPE, store desks and other furniture to increase usable room areas and decrease density, and try to purchase enough electronic devices for all of our families to have one provided by the district. We still have not met this goal. We offered our families the opportunity to have their child's schooling be fully virtual, K-12, hybrid, 6-12, or in person, K-5. While our teachers and staff have worked diligently and tirelessly to provide the best education they could under the circumstances, there is no way that education this year could have mirrored the type of education our students would have had in any other year in their educational experience. Our teachers continually assess their students Using the data gathered from these individualized assessments to inform instruction and tailor extra help to those students who are not moving forward in their own learning. These results are relayed to our parents as they occur by posting on a parent electronic grade portal, utilizing regularly scheduled parent-teacher conferences, electronic report cards, electronic progress reports, and report cards, both mailed home and available electronically. This is done far better in our classrooms than any state-created test for which the data is not able to be used to inform instruction due to lack of transparency in the questions and responses for each child, as well as the timing of when the results are returned to our district. The New York State Department of Education understands that this year, any non-locally derived, scored, and interpreted assessments will not truly yield usable results, and furthermore, take away from time in our classrooms that could better be spent educating our students. They have requested a waiver from the federal government to allow districts to internally assess students as was granted last year. The Connecticut School Board and the Superintendent of Schools recommend strongly that the Federal Department of Education grant the waiver of the federally mandated test for the 2020-2021 school year.
It should be done, then we do that.
Okay, so I need a motion and a second on the table for me to enact this and send it to the appropriately named.
Motion.
Second.
Can I make the motion first? I need a motion to accept the letter that limited to spread in public to Senator Schumer, Gillibrand, and Congressman Zeldin for the requested test waiver.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So then you have this down there.
Thanks very much.
The next topic is Board of Ed, but I'm gonna ask Jack to go wait because you're the only one on here, and let the public go first. Absolutely. Okay, so we don't let the public come up and speak.
Can I just give a quick update on the final exams and the work that's going on in the school?
Okay.
So,
I
yes.
want to actually answer that, so.
Okay, so if you just let me
Yeah.
finish. So again, to echo what the superintendent asked, on the request of the board, not take action this evening, but to allow the work that I started, probably several weeks ago now. We've had informal meetings, departmental meetings with our teachers at both middle school and high school to talk about meetings, exams, and final exams, impacts on students. And
When will we get those? When will we get that recommendation then?
so, the middle school principals and directors are meeting with their departments. They've been doing that since, early this week. Ms. Moran is putting a more formalized committee together, I told him today. He's reaching out to the CTA for a formalized committee. So we anticipate something, when we get back from break, to be able to present to the board.
So the first meeting in April?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Also, isn't it this Friday as a reminder, you have to have in your opt-out letter, if you want to opt
No,
out
you
for.
can opt out up to the day of the test, that's
No, but
policy.
they're asking, I got
We
a
would
letter home from
prefer
the
parents
district.
sent it in earlier so that teachers can plan better.
Right, but we got a letter saying to the parents who are at home tonight, if they hear this, there is a reminder that the 26th was a letter sent home stating you had to get your opt-in letters. So get your opt-in letters, because I could have to. go
Opt out
home
letters,
tomorrow.
opt out letters, opt out.
Opt-out, sorry, I'm
I'll also send a reminder.
Yes. I think, and can you please also include we have, and you know who I'm talking about, I'm not gonna mention their names. We have two people that have been tremendous, supporters of the opt-out movement. I'll give you their names afterwards, I know you know that. Please make sure that they're on those emails and they get those kind of letters, even though their children have because they are still connected with the county one, to the state one. You know how I'm talking about.
Since they don't have children in pre-grades.
I know, but they are still,
So one I
They still
did
represent us.
speak to, but if you give me the name of the other one, you definitely.
absolutely, thank you.
And I just want to remind the board, I know we said that we would have this recommendation by the first meeting in April, but we are about to go on a 1.5 week break. So the committee may not have met and formalized by April 13th.
So you're saying that you're supposed to say that, but we spent the last meeting. So now that's gonna be like 4 weeks and now you're saying that?
It may be done by then, but Friday, it starts the spring break. So, and it may be done and formalized by then, but we don't have teachers here, not those
It'll
discussions.
be 4 weeks by the next meeting.
I'm optimistic.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're gonna let the public go and then we'll have our last discussion. Thank you.
So about the regions, aside from the do not harm policy, there is something in the New York State education guidance that no students who are fully virtual would have to come in to take the test. So they are saying that students who are remote or who choose not to sit will have a waiver. So what I want to know is, aside from a do not harm policy, what would be the consequences if a student who is supposed to take one of the regions doesn't sit for it?
Good question. So that is a great question, because that has been a question amongst all of my colleagues, as well as the administration of the district and some of our teachers as well. They're very vague on that response about, wait, I have it written down. Their motivation to sit for the exam. And what the state has told us is that the district should provide guidance on expectations. So we have not, I think that'll be part of the conversation that our high school staff is going to be having with the administration. And that'll definitely factor into the bit of discussion.
So I guess my follow-up to that would be, what would be stopping me from taking my child and switching them to full virtual a week before the test? So that
Well, we don't want to do any switches like that, but I'm sure that, based on the guidance that we've received with, mandating students to come in for an exam, having kids sit for an exam, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, we can talk, privately if you'd like, but I don't think switching to virtual would be the best option. I think that there probably are other options.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Dina, I have a question.
Dean, opt out, opt out.
Dean,
Opt out.
Dean, I have a question. So how are colleges looking at this?
Now you're right, Dean. I did that once, we're not doing it again.
It's,
Sorry, I couldn't resist that one.
Don't worry about it.
Come on, I made you smile at least, I can see it under your mask.
my heart actually.
All right.
I can't, now, the college, I don't know how the colleges, everything is so up in the air, and I think it's really, it's creating such an environment of uncertainty for our juniors, our seniors, our kids who are, working towards their, salutatory and valedictorian status. Kids who are applying to colleges, it's just, I think this lack of guidance has really been a detriment. And, I think now that we have all of our kids back, one of the concerns was motivation for our students. But as, our two reps just mentioned, being back in school full-time, there's a level of accountability that's required for that. And a level of motivation to be back together again, and it's almost like you're restarting the school year. So, I'm not as concerned about the accountability piece, I'm not as concerned about the motivation piece. But I really would like someone to tell us that, it's gonna be this or it's gonna be that. And I think, with this uncertainty, I can tell you personally what I would do as a parent, but, I can't.
I can. Opt out. I can say it, I'm a parent, I'm opting out. I'm opting out.
I'm just worried because, again, our children, Dee and I, you and I have had these conversations. Connect What children are competing against Sachem, Comac, they're competing against other schools to get into colleges. My girlfriend's son who's in Oceanside, very good district, her son is pretty high up on the rankings there, didn't get into Stony Brook. So, I want everybody to realize we're not just Connect What, we're competing, our kids will be competing for those spots. And schools like Stony Brook are getting harder to get into because it is more affordable. People are starting to realize that, weighing in cost versus status of the college that they're going to. They're starting to go more to the state schools, exactly, community schools. So I just never want to see our kids at a disadvantage when they're competing against our neighboring districts.
So this may be, may help with that, is that, in conversations with other districts, they are looking to do something similar to what, we're discussing. So everybody's, that we have had conversations with, are relatively in line with what we're thinking and, what our staff has been providing feedback on, so.
Okay, so then you know where I'm leading to. I don't wanna be connect what's not doing it, but teaching, and then it's like, okay, now what happened to my kids?
Right.
So my kids are at a disadvantage. I don't wanna see that, because they're all competing.
Yes, absolutely, and, so far, we're in line with everything.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so Jackie, you have the last board discussion, you're the only one that put in for board discussion.
Okay, so two things. First, I want to say thank you to Linda for taking me to the high school to see two of our excellent female athletic teams. The varsity gymnast and the varsity volleyball, both excellent teams, exceptional athletes. It was an honor to go. We had so much fun watching them. It was excellent, and I hope we can go to more. It was just that day we were able to go, and it worked out very well. Thank you. The other thing, I wanted to know, and I know Dean, I called you on this, and thank you for calling me back. I never got back to you, but I ended up calling Linda for it. The end of the year celebrations, graduations for kindergarten, 5th grade and 8th grade. I know we have talked about the seniors, and I want to make sure the seniors get their due, but we also can't forget the little guys, the kindergartners that get to sing and dance or do some sort of graduation for their parents, the clap. It's such a special moment. And then the 5th grade is moving up to the 8th grade, the 5th grade is moving up to the middle school, the 8th grade is moving up to the high school. The big changes, and it's special. We should do something to make sure that these kids get the graduations, or as Lee always says, it's moving up, and I call it little graduations that they deserve.
Absolutely, and that is definitely the sentiment of each of the building principals. We have had ongoing conversations, beginning in February about the end of year celebrations. Looking at each of the activities that historically have gone on, to see what we can do to create that same sort of environment for kids, whether it be moving up ceremonies, field day and activities like that. So,
Well, I don't understand this, we'll get to the time tonight, I swear. But specifically, 5th grade always has something special, okay? Whether it be like some schools do a dance, some schools go to the outdoor activity places. There's been all sorts of things, but I'd like to see that and I know that there was some parents that came to me and said that they were upset about the bagel breakfast. I wrote to Linda. There are things that should be able to be done. Even if it's done outdoors, even if it's done in Ziploc bags, broken. We have to make stuff happen.
Yeah, so the food is something that we definitely have to have clarification on because, based on the guidance that we were using from, Valentine's Day, making sure that whatever food that we're providing to students is based from our food vendors. So we're gonna get clarification for that. But, they're talking about the great picnic, and activities like that so that they can celebrate with their kids and with their teachers. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar to what they have done.
Okay, and how about the aprons?
Same thing, so I'll help to try to put together for you, that'll outline what has historically happened and what will be taking place this year.
Terrific, thank you.
Hey, silly question, probably should be maturity, but what's going on in high school, will be 150 kids, everyone has to get tested?
So I think the way I'm looking at it, maybe the superintendent would want to jump in and feel this from me, but, is that we are planning to have a graduation, we're planning to have a prom, we're planning to have all those ceremonies that we always do. What they'll look like, will be determined based upon, the guidance that we have going forward. I think anybody who comes forward right now and says that this is what we're doing, it is really way too early because, each week we're seeing changes in the number of students that can gather and different things like that. So I think, we're looking to go forward with the planned activities that we have and the planned celebrations.
And they even go, if 500 kids, can they even go somewhere at once?
Not right now. That's
Oh, wait, wait,
we have to, we still have to, and Mr. Rubin said it appropriately earlier. it would just be nice if the guidance was there. You know, and what we see is the guidance changes daily. And, you know, we feel like we've hit a target, and then the guidance changes, and they're like, oh, the target's way down there now, okay. So, you know, the truth is, the intention is there. What it can look like, we don't know yet. You know, so it originally was 150, but everybody had a test. Now it's 200, now it's half, now it's 75%. We don't know what it's gonna eventually wind up at. Things are scheduled, especially for the seniors with the prom and the like. It's unlikely we'll be able to do the banquet and the prom because we're not sure what falls and how big and what that would look like. But they're planned right now. And if we get the go-ahead and we can meet the executive order, we're gonna do that. You know, we don't want to, the only reason we couldn't do those things last year is because our executive order was very narrow.
So, if you did a prom, and I'm just throwing this out there, I don't know if it can even be done, but if you did it at one of the larger places, I know we already had it, I think they said it was the Crest Hollow, if I'm not mistaken. I think and I think they said the other one was the Flower Fields, was for the, maybe that's the banquet. Flower Fields is huge, and I know that they're, like, I'm just saying, if it says 75%, you might be in a place that's very large for our senior class. What about places that have several rooms? Maybe you need to find out from the Department of Health and the CDC, what are the guidelines that's coming down from the governor's office? Where if it's a building, and I'm gonna use one for instance, like the Lombardi's, that has several weddings going on at one time. If that's 150 or 200 in one room, couldn't you have a prom where you had it like in different rooms? If you rented the place out altogether.
Well, that's similar to what they're saying. You can have 150 people at a wedding, but every group has to dance with the people they know and they can't mingle with the other people. So, you know, I understand what's going on. I went actually with the kids, but I guess we don't know.
We gotta wait for the guidance.
Oh, I just wanna add that, didn't he also, with the meetings, I know Town of Iceland just put out a thing that they're still not doing their meetings in person because the governor pushed it back into the month. Yeah, so the Town of Iceland is not even having in public meetings, they're still doing their virtual. Meanwhile, you got school districts that are all have been doing in-person meetings.
And that's why everything is scheduled, and we're just hoping and praying that the executive order allows us to do things as big as we possibly can. But we're kind of tied, you know, and Jackie just said, can't we find out what the governor is, you know, going to do? I don't think his aides know what he's gonna do day to day, so, you know, I actually,
No, I don't mean it like
I
that.
wish we could.
No,
have
I meant
prediction.
I meant it more of, what is it exactly right now?
Right.
Because every day I know from reading the stuff and seeing on the news, it changes.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, what is it right now?
Yeah,
I don't even know if they know, or if just the halls know. You know what I'm saying? If maybe
Right.
the halls know, because it pertains to them.
Right.
If it's three different big rooms have 150 or 200 people in it. If that's the case, you could have the whole senior class in the same building.
Right.
It would just be in three different rooms, and really, people go where their friends are.
Right.
So I'm just, they can all move around. It's not, I'm just saying, try to be creative and figure out what, you know.
I agree. I get you, I agree.
All right.
There are no more discussions on the agenda, so I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this Board of Education meeting.
Motion.
And I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, have a good night.
Thank you all for coming, and don't point
Happy Easter, everybody.
Ed.
Have a happy Easter, everybody.
Ed, don't go anywhere, Ed.
And happy.
Don't go anywhere.
Happy